Hello and good morning, everybody. My name is Frances Craik. I am the Education Coordinator for Arizona Landscape Contractors Association, and I'm very excited to be presenting this webinar, first of its kind, teaching you how to develop a wildflower program for your community or HOA. This program is being presented by Jeff Rons, who is the landscape manager of DC Ranch, a community here in town. I'm going to go ahead and pass it right over to Jeff to introduce himself and jump right into the presentation. Please feel free to share any comments or questions that you have in the chat, and we will save time at the end of the presentation to get into more discussion and ask those specific questions. So again, thank you for being here. Jeff, thank you so much for collaborating with us on this event, and take it away.
You bet. My pleasure, Francis. Can everyone hear me okay? Coming through okay, Francis? Excellent.
Yes, can hear you great. Thanks.
Great. So good morning, everyone. And again, thanks for participating in today's webinar on flowers and how to come into community way. Wildflowers.
Really... Jeff, I'm so sorry. You're starting to break up just a little bit. What I'm going to ask you to do is turn your video off, because that will help with bandwidth. And it should keep a strong connection if you just turn your video off. If you scroll your mouse down at the bottom of the Zoom toolbar. Yep, perfect. Thank you so much.
Is that better?
That is better, and we can still see the presentation, so no worries there. I'll go ahead and turn my video off as well, just to maintain strong bandwidth. Thank you.
Okay. Again, thanks again, everyone. So to discuss how you guys can integrate wildflowers into your community or HOA. I was saying wildflowers really do add a great burst of color and interest, along with biodiversity and benefits to our ecosystem. My name is Jeff Rons. I'm the landscape manager at DC Ranch. DC Ranch is 4,400 acre community that's up in North Scottsdale, kind of back right up to the Sonoran Preserve, North Scottsdale. I manage 20 acres of turf. We've got 26 neighborhoods, 800 homes, 7,000 residents, and 47 parks. So myself and my team are quite busy with these. I'm a native of Dalesville here. Grew up with the desert in my backyard and playground, and I'm fortunate enough to actually work where I used to horse and motorcycle, trek into the unique landscape, which is the Sonoran Desert. And every time I would go out,
hey, Jeff.
Yes.
I'm so sorry to interrupt you again, but we are having choppy audio once again. May I ask you to call in to the Zoom so that you can talk into your cell phone while presenting from your computer?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and send you if you just want to open your cell phone, I can tell you what the phone number is to call in.
Okay.
And then if you want to go ahead and mute your computer, let me know when you're ready for the phone number.
Mute it. Okay.
Yeah, I can actually manually mute you if you don't mind. And then let me know when you're ready to get the phone.
I'm not sure how to mute my computer here, Francis. I apologize.
No problem at all.
Difficulties here.
I can mute you right now, Jeff. Just tell me when you're ready for the phone number. Okay, the phone number for the Zoom call today is 1719 359 4580. And I've also put it in the chat for you, Jeff.
Francis, I'm not hearing anything.
Okay, I sent the phone number for you to call in the chat. Thank you, everybody, for giving us some grace as we navigate this.
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
All right, I'm not sure how to mute my computer. I've got a little microphone here.
No problem. I can mute your computer if you just want to call in from your cell phone.
Okay,
All right, let me know when you're ready for the number.
I'm ready.
All right, great. I'm going to go ahead and mute you now, and I'll share with you the number.
Okay.
That is 1-719-359-4580.
Francis, I need the meeting ID.
Okay, the meeting ID is 977
Enter your meeting ID.
8302 6074. I will also put it in the chat for you.
Enter your participant ID followed by pound. Otherwise, just press pound to continue. You are in the meeting now. There are 6 participants in the meeting. This meeting is being recorded. You have been added to the waiting room. You cannot talk or listen until the host admits you to the meeting.
Okay, Jeff, so I just admitted your phone to the meeting room. So feel free to click through the presentation on your computer and just speak into your cell phone so that the audio maintains its integrity.
Okay.
Thank you.
I've got on hold music playing right now.
Okay, you should be in the waiting room now on your, or you should be in the Zoom room now on your cell phone.
Okay.
Thank you. So go ahead and unmute on your cell phone, Jeff. Perfect. I believe we can hear you now. Will you please turn the volume off on your computer? Can you mute your computer?
How's that?
Much better. All right, let's get started. Thank you everybody for your patience as we get this technical situation handled.
All right, I'm going to carry on. So, can you hear me, Francis?
Yes, loud and clear. Thank you.
Okay. So, as I was saying, I grew up here, was captivated by the plant material in the Sonoran Desert, and growing up in the Arcadian neighborhood, I was so used to green grass and citrus groves that I wanted to find a way and kind of have a quest to learn as much as possible about the desert plant life and cactus and succulents and bring it to the urban environment. So I was studying landscape architecture at ASU, and in 1983 went to work with Steve Martino and John Douglas, who are both pretty well-known and award-winning local landscape architects, and they've kind of dedicated their craft to utilizing the desert native plants and integrating it with the urban environment, which was something I was looking to do. And so I've been doing this for a long time, almost 45 years in the landscape industry, and have been fortunate enough to work for some of the most exceptional communities and individuals in all aspects of landscape, from design to construction and everything in between. And so when I got to DC Ranch, they were having some problems with their wildflower program, challenges with weeds, invasive grasses and stuff. And so I was able to put some corrective measures into doing that. So I'm sure you've all seen the wildflower displays that we have once we get a wet winter near Picacho Peak and in the Marana area, or even the foothills and roads near the Superstitions. So colorful and vibrant, and people from all over the state and even other states and countries come out to experience the super blooms when we get those. So spring's a great time to expect that. And so what we'll do today is kind of take a look at how you can create that same spring surprise and anticipation in your community, whether you're in an HOA or even in your own landscape for that matter. What we're talking about can be done just about anywhere. So the wildflower program here at DC Ranch is pretty unique to the community, and it's truly something our residents look forward to each spring. We start prepping for the initial planting in August. So our guys have been going to each of our wildflower plots and zones and getting those prepared. The program that we have here was actually planned and implemented with the city of Scottsdale with a developer agreement, and it's been in effect for over 20 years. Is really distinct kind of to our community and the native, the way we maintain the native appearance of our community. And it's really one of the largest displays of wildflowers in the state, other than some of the ones down south. The difference between DC Ranch and some of the other communities when they developed it was to keep our medians and common areas as natural as possible. So our medians go from Thompson Peak, from Pima, wind around, if you're familiar with it. Thompson Peak winds around, hits Legacy, and then Legacy goes back to Pima Road. So it's a big loop. And so all the medians are not groomed. So if you crossed Pima Road and you went into Greyhawk, you'd see their medians are very sparsely landscaped and almost contrived looking. And when you cross over and you're in DC Ranch, it looks like the medians were just carved out of the native desert and nothing was ever disturbed. So that's kind of the way we want the wildflowers to look as well. So we try and make them look as natural as possible when we put them out for the seed. So some of the wildflowers that we utilize here and that we have in our seed mix, and I'll talk about our seed mix here in a little bit. We have scarlet flax. Scarlet flax is a pretty hardy annual, bright splash of color in the summer months. Beautiful inch and a half crimson flower with solid black. You can see the solid black eye, and it has a matching black edge around the petal. It's almost like a dress. It's just amazing how nature creates these beautiful details in these flowers. Then we have the desert bluebells. They have a 1-inch wide bell-shaped deep blue flower with protruding yellow anthers. You can see the little yellow anthers coming out of those. This is a favorite for pollinators. And then the one that everyone else always sees, you'll see them even popping up in some of the neighborhoods around town when spring comes. You'll see a lot of African daisies, and then some of the yards have the California poppies, which they're prominent, and you can find poppies all the way from Oregon all the way down to Sonora, Mexico, and Baja California. So it's a pretty prominent flower. Then we've got the plains coreopsis. They've got numerous branches bearing kind of daisy-like flowers with rays of yellow surrounds and kind of a reddish-purple center. Then down at the bottom, you'll see the sulfur cosmos, which you can find them in kind of orange, yellow, golden colors. They can grow up to be 6 feet in height in some areas, and if you want them to rebloom, you can actually cut those down to 12, 18 inches, kind of like rejuvenated pruning, and they'll rebloom and push new blossoms. So they're kind of a neat wildflower. And then everyone's familiar, I'm sure, with Perry's penstemons, popular plant with the pink lavender trumpet-shaped flower clusters, and one of the favorite feeding flowers for hummingbirds and other pollinators. Then you can see the next one is the 5-spot. They've got a bowl-shaped flower, which is, you know, something that butterflies and moths really are attracted to, with the white bowl and then, you guessed it, 5 purple spots. There goes its name, 5-spot. And then the last one is the desert lupine, which is another prominent wildflower. It's actually a forb that you'll see growing with its pale blue flowers. They're usually the first ones to pop up are the California poppies and the desert lupine. The nice thing about the lupine is they'll actually kind of last in through May if the weather's proper. So again, you know, those are some of the key wildflower species. There's a lot more. We've got such a diverse range of the wildflowers. And so what we do here at DC Ranch, we actually use over 30 pounds of a proprietary blend of wildflower seeds from over 20 species of wildflowers. Starting out, we used to actually have some native grasses in the mix, but they started hanging on and becoming so prominent. But what I'm going to be probably doing as a test, I might be introducing some of those grasses back into the mix to battle the stinknet. If you guys are familiar with stinknet, we've had a real tough time with stinknet. In fact, it was a challenge with our wildflower bloom last year because it was so prominent. And so I'm thinking maybe using some native grasses may be able to choke out some of the stinknet and still support the wildflowers. So the mix we get is formulated and blended for us. Again, it's proprietary. The percentage of each seed is kind of a unique blend. And so there's a company down in Tucson called Wildlands Restoration that they do the blend for us. So I actually was talking with the owner yesterday, and our 30 pounds of seed should be arriving sometime next week. So, and I'll share the contact info at the end of the presentation. So when creating a mix for your community, you want to think of several things: the desired colors, shapes, longevity, and even, you know, what pollinators you may want to attract to your wildflower plot or zone. Also think of how the wildflowers might even enhance your current plant palette. One thing that's very important, and a lot of people will make this mistake, is they'll go online and they'll purchase seeds from out-of-state vendors, and they'll get meadow blends and flowers that maybe will grow here in the Sonoran Desert, but are harvested or collected from another area. And so you don't want to use those blends. You want to try and get something from local seed collector like Native Seeds or like I said, Wildlands Restoration when you get those. So this is an illustration of our wildflower mix. Again, it's 20 species of wildflowers, and it's quite heavy. It doesn't look like it, but when we get that 30-pound box, it's actually two shipments of 15-pound bags. So again, choose your seeds based on your area, and you don't have to have 20 species like we do. I think really what happens is with that 20 species, you've got a better chance of percentage of some success, and some of them you may not even see. So when you're selecting a site, what I would do is drive through your community and look for some common areas. You gotta make sure you're on your own property, that it's your HOA property or community property. You don't want to be putting a wildflower plot in the common area of Wells Fargo or something. So you want to make sure that you're planting in your property. So look for common areas that have high visibility, foot traffic, vehicle traffic. We have over 50 miles of paths and walking trails here in DC Ranch, so we utilize that as well. But look for paths, walkways, medians, and intersections. So if you look at the top two pictures on this slide, those colored areas are actual wildflower plots. And so they're at intersections that have stoplights. So going each direction, that gives people an opportunity to see the wildflowers while they're waiting for the light or waiting for an opportunity to turn. Walkers, hikers, if they're stopped waiting for the crosswalk. And then you can see when they go across the crosswalk, they get to see the wildflowers in those plots. And then going up towards the top of that one, you can see there's one of our gatehouses. So we even have a couple small plots near those gatehouses. Down below, I just recently took these photos, and those two areas we just got done prepping those for our wildflower seeds. Removed any grasses, weeds, or anything like that. So when you find a spot in your community or at your home or in a landscape, look for an area that's got plenty of sunlight, free of weeds as much as possible, in grasses. Avoid slopes so you don't get wash off, and then just get it prepared. And like I said, we started in August, so we'll come back and we'll weed it before we cast the seeds. So pretty good photos of what it looks like in our wildflower plots here. So right location is pivotal though. So the planting timeline, the prep time, like I said, we're starting to prep right now. If you've got everything prepped and ready, do the last weeding, give the area a good soaking just before you go to plant. But we look for typically between October and December, with Halloween kind of being our mark that we will start getting the seeds into the ground. You don't want to go much later than December. So site preparation and sowing the seeds, like I was saying, you want to remove as much of the low grasses and weeds as possible. It's a critical step. And again, you want to keep things as natural as possible when you're selecting the site and preparing it. One thing we don't want to do, if you have experience landscaping here in the desert, you don't want to do a whole lot of deep digging with the desert pavement and our natural crust that we kind of have on the desert soil. Going in about a 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch just to loosen the soil surface is more than plenty. You don't want to go deeper because you have the possibility of mustering up any weed seeds that may be in that soil. Some communities, we don't have any decomposed granite in our community. There's a couple commercial areas where we do, but if you do have decomposed granite, like even 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, some places have large 3/4 inch, you don't need to do any of that scratching or anything like that. Just water it, get the moisture, get the ground pre-moistened, and those seeds will go down and find their way to the soil in the decomposed granite. So you don't have to do anything special as far as prepping it with raking or anything like that. So because those seeds are so small, some of them are large, some of them are just minute and will blow away. So what we do is we create a casting medium that we mix in a wheelbarrow or a large bucket, which is composed of sand and either a compost or a fine mulch. And we mix approximately 8 to 1 wildflower seed to the sand mixture. So it helps keep the seed from blowing away when you broadcast them. Some people are skilled enough that they can broadcast by hand and get a nice casting. I've got 2 of my guys that have been here 15 years that are really good at doing it by hand and don't like to use the rotary spreader, but you can use that. Just fill it with the sand and seed mix and kind of randomly go around in the area that you're planting. One thing is a good tool. If you know where your area is, you can take a marking paint and kind of do a dotted thick marked line so you kind of know where you want your seeds to be. And again, it's random. You know, the seeds naturally are blown around and carried by wind and rain, so you really can't go wrong, but you want to kind of know where your area is. So once we put the seeds down, we come back and we lightly top them with a mulch, and you can even use the sand and mulch mix. You don't want to, if you're by a road or something, you don't want to have it obvious that you've got a bed of mulch covering seeds. You want to use something that kind of blends in with the natural surface. So maybe you might just use some sand because it might blend in better than a dark mulch. So that's how we prepare the site. And again, sowing the seeds, if you're good at doing it by hand, that's great. One thing, there's a unique little tool down at the bottom that you may not have seen before, and it's a product by Neversink Tools, the bed roller. And so we use that once we put the seeds down. We use that before we water, and it's imperative that you don't use a tool like that after you water, because you'll just be picking up your seeds. So once you get the seeds sown, you want to run that leveler over the top of them and get them bedded, and then gently mist them with as fine a mist as possible, so you don't wash the seeds away, that you don't have any fissures or washouts and create that situation. You just want things to get settled. So, you know, if we receive adequate rainfall, watering is not a big concern. But if not, watering 2 to 3 times weekly to push germination is perfect. One thing you really want to try and do, and we try to do it here, is mimic rainfall. So if any of you are familiar with Azimet, you can go online and use the Azimet from the U of A, and you can view the historical rainfall amounts. So like 2017, 2018, we had a lot of winter rain, and Paso Peak and southern Arizona, and even the areas going up to Four Peaks had really nice wildflower blooms. So you can look and see, one year we had almost 6 inches of winter rain, and it was great. So it gives you an idea of how much water you might need to apply or simulate. So, but again, watering 2 to 3 times weekly to get the germination works just fine. So in the winters where we've had super blooms, you know, you'll be able to see that the rainfall was significant. So if you have existing irrigation in the areas that you choose to do your wildflower plots, you might be able to tap into an existing irrigation system or retrofit a valve for your wildflowers. If not, get creative. There's all kinds of ways to get water to them. Water wagons, if you even need to, you know, bring a hose from another location. But put that into your planning. You know, if you need to have supplemental water, you can do that. I've seen companies use those 250-gallon totes and just gravity feed water onto them to provide water. And then if we have enough rain, you get a pleasant surprise. So our wildflowers typically start to pop in March. Again, like I was saying when I was going over the different varieties, the poppy varieties and the lupine are always the first ones to show. So once you have a bloom, there's really little you need to do. And one thing is, don't panic if some of your seeds don't germinate the first time. Some seeds are really finicky, especially the annuals. They may take a year or two to show their blossoms and blooms. One thing that I've found that helps is if we have a year where we have good moisture and then we get a bit of a freeze or a hard frost, excuse me, what it tends to do is it will crack some of the seeds just because of the frost freeze and the thawing, and that helps open up that seed up for the intake of moisture and allowing that root hair to start to protrude and germinate. So sometimes a freeze is good. One thing we do here, because you know we do go out and weed and sometimes even thin if we get a profusion of just one variety, we'll thin them out. But the guys got creative and they plant an identity garden with the seeds so that they can view as the plants are germinating to see, you know, what a young wildflower plant looks like, what a semi-mature one, and then what it blooms look like, so that they're not pulling out wildflowers instead of weeds or undesirable grasses. So the other thing is you want to take time when you're looking at your plots and checking your plots to check for the moisture level. Really important. So if you don't plant wildflowers for any other reason at all, plant them for our ecosystem. Our desert pollinators depend on blossoms and blooms. The spring is when they're most active, you know, the bees and hummingbirds and butterflies and moths. They absolutely love the wildflowers, and each one seems to have a preferred type and shape flower that they've adapted to. So you'll see a lot of the butterflies like the trumpet-shaped flowers, like the lupines and the Paris penstemons. And then the butterflies and bees tend to go to the cupped type flowers, like the globe mallow, the five spots, and some that are similar to that. So take advantage of that. You know, even if you just had a small area where, like at a community center or something like that, where you could just create a neat pollinator garden or exhibit for the residents to enjoy and get to see those pollinators in action. It's amazing how tame the hummingbirds are when they're dead set on getting some nectar. You can be standing right there and watch them feed on penstemons and such. So one thing with the wildflower program, they really it lends itself to community engagement, and that's one of the key topics of the webinar today is getting community participation. At DC Ranch, we've got a annual event that our community council puts on, which is about a 1.4 mile wildflower and landscape walk. And typically it's the third Saturday, and again, it's based on what kind of bloom we get. Third Saturday of March. We do 2 sessions. The first one I did was an hour and a half, and it was not long enough because I love giving information and the people just love learning. So now we do a 2-hour educational tour. We do 2 of those, which we get a huge turnout. That top picture is one of the, I think that's one from last year. So creating fun activities to integrate with the wildflowers. The other thing, one year we did not have a really good bloom, and we turned the wildflower walk into a landscape stroll, and people enjoyed it just as much. We had, of course, the poppies and the lupines. We didn't have as much of the other wildflowers, but I was able to talk about, saguaros and some of the other unique plant materials. So all wasn't lost. So you can always find something to talk about when you're looking at the desert plant material and wildlife. So coming up with a walk. Another thing that we've done is a photo safari, which is kind of like an online program where walkers or joggers or anyone that's out and about on the 50 miles of paths and trails that we have comes up in photographs the wildflowers that we have on our list. They can submit the 3 photographs for a entry into a raffle, and then the winners will get some DC Ranch swag. So that's kind of a neat thing that we do. Another thing that's fun is they do an actual scavenger hunt where they've got the list of our wildflowers, and sometimes the people will get together in teams and then split up to see who can photograph the various wildflowers that we have. Geocaching. I'd never done a geocaching program, and then last year was the first one where both with wildflowers and some other cactus and unique desert and native plants. I went out and I located them, geocached the coordinates, and then the community council team put together an online package with the latitude and longitude of the location, and then they would go out with their team and find that location and then take a photograph. So that was something. And then just photo contests where the residents are able to go out, photograph the wildflowers, and then just submit them, and then we'll either publish some of them in our newsletters and publications, or actually have them put on a canvas and utilized in some of our office facilities and buildings. So again, you don't have to have a super bloom to do a nature or landscape stroll. So some of the tips and tools that we use. So one thing that comes in handy if you have a large area and you want to top dress, instead of walking around with a shovel, we use a top dressing roller and spreader where we put that sand and compost mix into the spreader, and then we'll go over the seeds once we cast them, and then level it and water them in. Another thing is, any of you guys that are familiar with irrigation, we had an area that we didn't have a controller going to, but we did have access to water. So using the Hunter node battery controller is a great option. So if you do have irrigation nearby where you might be putting a wildflower plot, and you're able to convert it, even if you were going to do some temporary irrigation lines, which I've done. I actually did it at Desert Highlands when I was the director of landscape and horticulture there. Put above ground PVC. My team painted it and kind of camouflaged it with sprinkler heads, and we had a node controller, and we utilized that to get the seed germinated and get the initial bloom, and then removed it. And it was camouflaged so good that people really didn't even notice it. So getting creative, you can always find a way to get water to the areas. And then a Hawaiian hoe comes in handy. I'm sure everyone's used one of those Hawaiian hoes. Our guys use that to go around some of the areas that we need to weed. But quite honestly, a lot of it, because they use that identity garden, they look for plants and they'll just hand pluck them or use the corner of the hoe and get rid of them. And then down below, you can kind of see an idea of using a temporary irrigation setup. And if I was going to use that in a median or something, again, I would take some tan paint, some green paint, and then spray that and camouflage it, and then utilize that. So again, getting creative and inventive to find solutions. So to summarize, boy, I went through this quick. To summarize what we talked about, developing a successful wildflower program for your community is not difficult. It's not a difficult initiative. It's something that is fairly easy to do. Just takes some thought, some planning, creativity, and some involvement. It's a great opportunity to get your community involved with that. So, and then creating a wildflower seed blend. There's lots of online sources. The photos that I showed you are some of the most popular ones and the ones that seem to be successful in our area. So putting together that seed blend and then getting with a reputable seed harvester and vendor like Wildlands is a great way to get that seed. And again, engage the residents. I get emails and ideas from residents in the community all the time of different ways to display them in different areas where someone may see an area where, hey, is it possible to create another wildflower area? And if we've got the irrigation and the ability to do it, we'll try and do it. But again, we try and keep most of the areas along the Thompson Peak corridor, and then just gently going into the gated entries to all the communities. So every community gets a little bit of a taste going into their neighborhood. Again, like I said, don't stress if you don't have access to water. We don't have wildflower plots. Last year and the year before, just going down Thompson Peak, there was areas where we never planted or sowed wildflower seeds, and we had beautiful stands, kind of waves and blotches of lupines and poppies that were spread naturally from the seed blowing away or from wildlife or carried by water. So they didn't get any water and they came up. So it's always once you get it into the ground, they last quite a while, and you're pleasantly surprised if we get plenty of rain each season. Another thing I didn't mention, you know, a lot of people ask about, do you have to worry about the birds? We haven't had any problem with birds. Once you get the seed watered in and there's a bit of a cover over it, it doesn't seem to be a problem with them. And I think because the areas that we have are traveled by both foot traffic and vehicular traffic. So again, celebrate the bloom, create a community event around the wildflowers, like the photo contests and things that I had pointed out. It's a lot of fun. The guys, your team, get them involved. We've got our irrigators really take a lot of pride in providing that simulated rainfall. So they go out and they'll test the systems and make sure everything's up and running and up to snuff. And the guys that the team that I have, our wildflower team that casts the seeds and sows the seeds, take a lot of pride in that. So they look forward to it. And then the rest of our teams love doing the maintenance and being out in the wildflowers. It's neat because residents will stop and take photographs, and a lot of times they'll take photographs with the guys. So great opportunity to get your team and residents involved and engaged in probably one of the biggest assets in any community is the landscape. So any questions? I did have some frequently asked questions that I get. How much does spelling check? How much does wildflower seed cost? We pay around $85 a pound from Wildland in Tucson, and you'd be surprised how much is in a pound of wildflowers. And again, you can create that mix, the percentages of the wildflowers. Gary, the owner of Wildlands, is really good at putting together a formula. And one thing that we've done over the years is we've actually subtracted some of the flowers that are in our mix. Like I said, we have over 20 species, and I'll kind of do an assessment of the varieties that we're seeing prominence, and if there's some that we don't see year after year, I'll remove them from the mix or decrease the amount. One, for example, like we used to have quite a bit of globe mallow in there, and now we've got so much globe mallow growing in the medians that I've had that reduced from 4% to 1% in our mix. So that's something to think about as well. So about $85 a pound. You don't need to amend the soil before sowing the wildflower seeds. A lot of people are concerned about pH. You know, do we need to add sulfur or gypsum or things like that? And it's really not necessary. I mean, just that scratching up that 1/4 to a 1/2 inch is plenty. Wildflower seeds are really adaptable and do well in just most any condition. So no need to worry about even pH, anything like that. So in the same sense, there's no need to fertilize wildflower seeds. Once they germinate, they don't have a whole long life. But the other thing you don't want to do is give the weeds and invasive grasses a boost by putting down a fertilizer that's going to promote the growth of those culprits. You want to just have the wildflowers be the star. So I always get asked about herbicides in the area that people plan for wildflowers. We don't use glyphosate or Roundup here at DC Ranch. We rarely even use a pre-emergent. It's in the charter that pre-emergents were not to be used, but after seeing the challenges that we're having with stinkneck, the globe chamomile, it may be something that we may need to look at. But as far as the wildflowers go, I use a product called OnMark, which one of the vendors that's part of ALCO, Rainbow Ecoscience, is the vendor for OnMark, which is an organic herbicide that I've done tons of testing with, both on grasses, weeds, and it's ammonium nonate based, so it's not a glyphosate. And if you have people in your community that go into an uproar when they know that you're spraying a glyphosate product like Ranger Pro or Roundup, the OnMark herbicide is a great way to do that. And so I would like right now, with the heat, if we had some weeds or invasive grasses in our wildflower plots, I would look to spray some of those, get them knocked down, and not have to have them coming back up from being hula-hoed or plucked. So I would use the OnMark. Most of those products become inert once they hit soil, and they wouldn't affect seeds. But I would do that in August, then let that area set fallow for December, and then begin getting ready for the sowing and the prep in October. Like I said, we use Halloween. So if you need to and absolutely have to use an herbicide to get an area prepped and free of weeds and grasses, you can do that. Another question I get is, what do we do with the dead wildflowers? So some of them, depending on the species, are easier to harvest or deadhead and collect than others. It's quite time consuming, and because most of our wildflowers are along the roadway and in medians, I try to limit the amount of time that my team's out in the traffic, because it's quite dangerous. We have quite a few accidents from people texting and running into the median, so I try and keep them out of there as much as possible. So what they'll do is we'll wait till the wildflowers expire and are dry and brittle, and then we'll just go in with line trimmers and just weed whack the dickens out of them. And in that process, you're spreading the seeds and kind of supplementing what you're putting out there. It also spreads it into different areas. So that's one thing that you don't have to really worry about. If you want to collect them, you can. Another thing, it's kind of a neat idea that I forgot about is sometimes we'll have events and I'll order a few extra pounds of the wildflower seeds, and they'll package them for gifts at some of the events for the residents with a DC Ranch logo on them. And if they want to put them in their yards or areas around their home, they can do that. So any questions
Yeah,
Can we just call them out?
Yeah, there were two messages in the chat that we'll start with, and then we can then we'll open the floor. The first question
Sure.
is, do you include Arizona poppy in your blend?
Yes, we sure do.
And then the other question is, do some of the wildflowers return every year once added to the soil? I was under the impression that some of the poppies return each year.
Yeah, that's what I was saying is once you get a good wildflower stand, and you deadhead them, or like I said, we go through, once they're dead, we'll go in and weed whack with our line trimmers, and it scatters the seeds all over the place. And just from nature, the seeds will be carried by wind, by moisture, rainfall, and we'll find wildflowers blooming in areas where we never even created a wildflower plot, and there's no irrigation. So I was, like I said, I was surprised the year before last with how much wildflower growth and bloom we had along Thompson Peak, where we never even put any wildflowers manually. So yeah, they'll come up, and the poppies and the lupines are always the first bloomers, and they always hang around quite a while. And what's funny about the lupines, the guys call them crack flowers because they're always in the cracks along the curbs and along the roadways. It seems like they love that little narrow chunk of soil to grow. So you'll see those all over the place. So yeah, they will come up naturally.
Great, thank you. Now we can just open the floor for questions and discussion for anybody that might want to unmute.
Hey, this is Chris. I'm a board member who wants to do this. It was like perfect timing. So thank you so much for hosting this meeting. I didn't know you did this. I was like, how would I do this? And then all of a sudden there's a meeting that comes up. So thank you so much for organizing it.
Yeah.
My question.
Well.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
First, tell me what community you're in.
Yeah, I'm a board member for Arrowhead Phase 5 over in Glendale, just down the 101 from you all. I mean, we used to be an orange grove, so there is not a native plant within sight. So I've I joined the board to kind of bring the wildlife back. So that's my mission.
Mm-hmm.
My question is.
Well.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry to interrupt.
That's a perfect opportunity to introduce a wildflower program, especially being a board member. You should have some wide open ears.
Excellent. Yeah, my question was, can we just get a tour? I want to go see. I'm not a resident of DC Ranch, but I was looking online. It looks beautiful out there. Can I stop by and bug you for a tour?
It's a beautiful community. So what you can do is you can go onto our DC Ranch website, which is pretty extensive, and it shows dates and everything for events. So like I said, and you'd be more than welcome to come along on the Wildflower Walk in March. It's just something you sign up for. And if you go onto the DC Ranch website, you'll be able to see that information. We really don't do it. We really don't do a tour, but even people will come driving through the loop of Thompson Peak that comes from Pima Road going east on Thompson Peak, loops around to Legacy, and so people will come and drive along there to see the wildflowers.
Great.
And I'd be more than happy to, any advice or help you need on doing a program like that. My contact information is right here on this page, along with Gary Maskarinec's information at Wildlands Restoration, and Spadefoot Nursery also does wildflower seeds.
Beautiful.
Thanks for joining us.
Hello, my name is Amber, and I am a water conservation coordinator for the city of Avondale. And I appreciate this program because The Parks and Rec Department actually asked me to transform one of the parks into a native wildflower garden for pollinators. So they want a whole pollinator pathway. And I'm also working on a revitalization project for my area where I work at, where all the water utilities are. We call it the MOSC, the Municipal Operations Center. And so this gave me a lot of really good ideas and contacts. So you said you have like 20 different plants in your wildflower mix. You only showed maybe 8. So do you?
Yeah, the one.
Go ahead.
What I showed Amber was the most popular 8 that we have in our mix. Those 8 are about the percentage, the ratio, I would say 6 to 8% of our mix. Like I said, I won't share the mix because it's proprietary and it's been specifically developed for DC Ranch. But
right. I mean, I could go out there and name all the plants.
Yeah, but so here's the thing. I mean, even getting with Gary at Wildlands Restoration, you might want to include some of the native grasses that are perennial grasses. There's some fescues and arrow points and things like that you can include. And then I designed a hummingbird and butterfly garden years ago for the Desert Botanical Gardens. And one thing you be sure that you include is not just wildflowers, but there's a host of other really good pollinator native plants. And,
oh yeah, no, I have that on the list. There's because I'm part of the Native Plant Society and Xerces and all these, and I'm a plant biologist actually.
Oh, I am too.
Where I came from, I got my master's at ASU in plant biology. So yeah, that's part of the list is the perennial plants that are really good for our butterflies, and because we're one of the biggest butterfly states in the United States next to Texas, so got to support them.
True. Yep.
And then our bees, we have, I mean, we're also a huge bee state, and people don't realize that, that there's so many native bees here. And then of course the hummingbirds, yes. We have several species, and we're not too far from Estrella Mountain, so we have other species in the area that you won't see in other parts of the valley. So my other question was, do you have signage and stuff out there to let people know like what they are? Because you talked about doing like scavenger hunts, and did you create because what I'm trying to do is not only have signage, but maybe also create a walking pathway or things where people can do their own tour, like if they want to do and then they can see what
we have that. So yeah, Amber, can you see the slide that I just pulled up?
Yeah. Oh, that's a guide, wildflower guide. Okay.
That's our wildflower guide, and so it's got an image of each of the wildflowers. So it's a kind of a self-guided tour that inside it shows our paths and trails, some of the areas where we have the wildflowers, tells about the wildflowers, and so that's something that we have available at the community centers for the residents.
Where could I get a copy of that so I can see one of those, kind of how you guys put it together? Do I have to drive all the way out there and go pick one up, or can you
can actually go onto our website.
Yeah, I'm there.
And see it. I'm not sure exactly where it's at. It might be in programs or something like that, but no, that little guide is actually on the website.
Yeah, I'm looking on the website.
I'm looking too. I can find the link and send it via email if I'm unable to find it during the webinar.
Okay, thank you. That would be appreciated. Because
I think it's under where it's under community activities and things like that.
Yeah, I'm in the calendar underneath community activities, so I was kind of looking.
Yeah, it wouldn't be in the calendar. It would be under the main banner.
I did find it. I dropped it in the chat, and I'd also be happy to send it in an email to everybody.
Did you found it, Francis?
I sure did, yes.
Okay, great.
Perfect, got it. Thank you. Just opened it.
So yeah, I mean, what you're doing is great. I've built and remodeled over 12 golf courses, And one of the things that I always integrate into the redesign or a renovation or a revegetation of a golf course is throughout the golf course pollinator gardens and plots where there's constantly some plant material that's providing a food source for pollinators. It's so important. And more communities need to be cognizant of it and provide for those creatures.
Well, then the rules would need to be changed, like the city codes, because I have a registered pollinator pathway in my yard and a registered habitat. And then the city comes by and says, oh, you have to trim your weeds. I'm like, well, those aren't weeds. Those are native, plants, and they're native wildflowers. And so there's other rules that would need to change, so it's really hard for communities to do this if the cities aren't keeping up with what communities want to do.
Well, the communities have to be a sounding board and a voice, and even outreach. I know ALCA in so many different things, whether it's water or invasive plants. It's something that we're always trying to make people and communities aware of. And so if they don't hear about it, they don't know about it, and it just becomes status quo. So it's important to get communities engaged in bringing those things to the forefront, so they understand the importance, and it's not just some bureaucracy guideline that is detrimental in the long run.
Well, I appreciate
Thanks,
your knowledge and all of your, advice, and I am working on changing that, at least in Avondale. So
that'd be great.
Does anybody else have any other questions or any comments?
One quick last question. This is Chris over at Arrowhead. We've got the granite thing. We've got tons of granite. You said, hey, you don't need to rough it up too much. But they, the crews just over the years have just soaked it in pre-emergent and all kinds of stuff. Do we need to put a top dressing after? One, is there anything we can do? Like, will it still work even if I tell them, hey, this year don't spray the pre-emergent in this area, spread the seeds? Would we be fine?
So that's a great question, Chris. So what I would do in that situation, because in DC, in Desert Highlands, we had some areas where they had, along a bridge where they had done pre-emergent. Keep in mind, wildflowers are not real deep rooters. So pre-emergent, if you understand how pre-emergent works, it actually doesn't kill anything. It interacts with the hormone within the seed and makes it so the seed the root hairs coming out of the seed when it germinates mutate, and so it can never surface. So whenever pre-emergent is applied, whether it's granular, like pendulum granular, or pendulum liquid, it has to be watered in. And so over time, that pre-emergent is going to be leached through past the zone where those seeds are. So, the studies have shown there's wildflower seeds up to 8-10 inches in the soil, but if you put a plot together, painted it, and said, don't do anything in this area, just go in with some marking paint and have a dedicated area, leave it, treat it with the pre-emergent, like on-mark, like I discussed, then you should be fine. And I would put a top dressing on it. But if you've got decomposed granite, I would cast those seeds in there, mark the area, and then come back even with a hand spreader and cast sand over it, so that sand trickles in and kind of fills those voids and provides a little bit of moisture.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you so much. This is super helpful.
Excellent.
Okay, well, if nobody else has any more questions or comments, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up with just my gratitude for Jeff for putting together this presentation. and inspiring people throughout the valley to develop wildflower programs in their communities and medians and properties. So thank you again. I will be sending a follow-up email with the resources that are on screen here and as well as Jeff's contact. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out to us or the contacts that Jeff provided.
Yeah, and I apologize for the technical difficulties at the beginning, folks.
One last question. Will we get a, are you going to be emailing the presentation to us at all or no?
If it's okay with Jeff, I did record this meeting, so I'd be happy to share a video link to the presentation. Yes.
I don't have a problem with it.
Okay, great. Then you will be getting a link as soon as I can upload it. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for spending your Friday morning with us, Jeff. Thank you so much for putting together the presentation and sharing your experience and expertise with us. I hope everybody has a great rest of your day and an awesome weekend. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.